Alright, let's continue with the SnatchOut class. First of all, I just need to make a little adjustment to the camera. Just gonna make it a 80. Alright. So first, we're gonna check to see if this if the snap delay is greater than a certain value. In this case, just gotta make sure if it's greater than 0.1. And let the user know that that the snap delay has been rechanged. Alright, this way the user will be notified that the snap delay has been reset if he tries to set it below a certain number. And then we're going to enable, since we're going to attach this script to a camera, we're going to enable the current camera if it's already disabled. And then we are going to cycle through all the cameras in the scene, and if any other cameras other than the Snapshot camera is active at the time, we're taking a snapshot, we're going to disable all of them. Actually, we're going to let the user know that he's supposed to disable all of them before running the script. You need a way to monitor how many cameras that are active. Cameras.length. And this function actually gives all the active camera in the current scene. And we're going to increase the active cameras, and we're going to check to see if the active camera is greater than 1. Since this camera, we are not counting this camera. Any cameras other than the current camera is active, we're going to break out of the loop. Log error, show an error, disable all other cameras before running auto snapshot. And then we're gonna return out of it. Okay, now we're going to set the camera dot aspect equal to the aspect that we get as an input. As I mentioned earlier, the aspect is height divided by the width of the screen. So in this case, I'm running 1600 by 900, so it's about 0.3 something. So, but I want the snapshot to be a square, not a rectangular one. In this case, it's gonna take a picture which is rectangular, but we're going to be creating a square planes, so we really want square textures. So in this case, I'm setting the aspect to be whatever aspect that you provide. Graphic size times aspect. I will be explaining that momentarily. Okay, here what we're doing is we're actually measuring the actual width of the screen in pixels. In this case, we're actually getting the half of the actual unit because we're going to be offsetting the camera by this amount. So by multiplying the orthographic size by the aspect ratio, you get the actual width. So, but the orthographic size actually corresponds to the height of the screen. And then we're going to create a function to actually move the camera. We're going to be moving the camera to that value. And to create that function, we can let the Visual Studio do that for us, and paste it underneath, clean it up. Alright, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to take the transform the position equal new vector 3 and then x half unit comma, actually no, it's not x happening all the time, x and z, so we're gonna move x, no, x, and then and then you need the y is going to be the current, whatever the height of the camera is, and then z. That's it. Then what we're gonna do is declare a variable how much we need to increment each between snapshots, which is going to be half unit times 2. The actual width is going to be this value right here, the actual width of the screen. And same thing as the increment, the half unit times 2. Then we're going to be need to figure out what's the dimensions of the current terrain is. Let's find an x terrain max equal an active terrain. Terrain and active current terrain gives the current terrain that's active in the scene. And we get the terrain data and size dot x. This gives us the width of the current terrain. And then z terrain max equal terrain dot active terrain data dot size dot z. All right. And now we're actually going to be moving the camera and taking the snapshot. Alright, so we need to create a helper class. This class is going to help us create asset folders inside Unity. So let's create that class, because I'm going to be checking to see if a folder exists inside an asset folder. Rather than calling system.io.directory exists, I'm going to create a helper class to create a folder if it doesn't exist already. Helper, call that helper, and then we don't need any namespace, and we need to make this public static class helper, and then we don't need any of those. And okay, let's indent that, and then we need to import using system.io. And then we're going to be creating a function, public static void doesn't return anything, create asset folder if not exists, string path. This will create whatever path is inside the asset folder. Application, since it's a Unity function, we need to import Unity engine. Application.data path, which gives the folder to the assets folder. Plus path. Oh, nope. We need to add a. No, let's do string.format. It's way better. 0 divided by 1. And that is going to get the actual directory, and we're going to make sure that the directory exists. The directory exists, full path. If it does not exist, we're going to create it. Directory that create directory, full path. Nope. And this will create the actual directory. Okay, so right now we need to we need a folder to save all the textures, all the snapshots that we're going to take. So we are going to create that folder first. Create asset folder, does not exist. Minimap, we're going to save it under minimap folder, and then inside textures. Yes. All right, and then we're going to be x equal x terrain max plus x half unit. I'll be explaining this momentarily. Z terrain max plus z half unit. Okay, so we are going to increment x and z by by x increment and Z increment. Since that's a float, it's suitable to make all these float. Alright, they're all float now. Alright, so what you need to check to make sure that the X is less than X terrain max plus half unit. Well, bear with me for a sec. Okay, you may be wondering, why didn't I set it less than X terrain max? If you look at the scene, and if I do force split one more time to take the top texture, see where the camera is located right now. It's located at 0, 0, but look where the lowest point is. Lower corner is at negative X half unit comma negative Z half unit. This is the lowest possible point. So when the camera is moving around, when it gets to the point, let's say if it's when it gets to the top portion, and we need to make sure that actually the camera actually takes all the map completely. So we need to position the camera to its corners, because the corner is the spot which is going to see the complete map. We need to make sure that the map is completely taken. So let's well, just show you guys. Let's make this smaller. Let's say the camera is like that, and the next frame it's going to take is this frame. At this point, the loop fails. As you can see, it is greater than X terrain max, but you're going to miss this complete portion of the whole map. So that's why I'm actually offsetting the whole map by X half unit. Actually, the camera by X half unit. So if you're wondering why I'm doing that, and then we're going to reposition it to 0. It doesn't matter, you don't have to reposition it. I'm just doing that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to move the camera to that position. We're going to move it X and Z, and we're going to take snapshot, and then we are going to wait a couple of seconds. So that means we're going to yield from this function. So I'm going to make this an enumerator. Camera. So you can use the yield statement. So, and then you can return. Actually, you got a yield return since it's a enumerator. Return new wait 4 seconds, and we're gonna wait until the snap delay. What the yield statement is going to do is, since everything happens inside the start class, you're not calling the update to actually take the snapshot. You're actually calling in everything inside the start class. So that means you can't really pause without actually pausing the current thread. You gotta sleep the current thread to actually pause the execution of this current function. But what the yield statement does is actually waits. It does not actually create another thread. It doesn't happen. Some people confuse it with threading. It's not another thread. It happens in the same thread, but actually waits until this function returns. If it returns a value, and it will go to the next line. In this case, it will reach the kernel bracket and will go back to the top of the loop. Alright, so let's test it to see if it actually moving. The camera is moving or not. Okay, we got an error. Why is that? Okay, oh, yep, that's true. That happens because you cannot return out of an enumerator. You got to return yield break. That's how you return. Instead of returning a null like you would do, you can't even return null. Even if you return null, it's going to still complain because you cannot, because it's an enumerator. So you got to yield break. This will return out of it, and this will clear the error. And then let's test it out to see if the camera is moving or not. There we go. It's doing the job correctly. As you can see, it goes all the way to the top and then comes back and taking a snapshot. Now all you got to do is just capture that, snapshot. So we're going to be calling application dot capture screenshot, and we're going to be saving that to a why am I have caps lock on, to the assets folder, like the folder that we just created, assets, inside Minimap, inside textures, and then we're going to provide a file name where I'm going to give a regional file name. You can, since we're going to be referencing this file name to load it later, so make sure you call it something easy to remember. In this case, I'm going to call it PNG, and I'm going to call it. I'm going to call this the file name x-z dot and then the name. So we're going to xz and the segment name. Right now, it's going to save the snapshot to the folder, texture folder. So let's take the snapshot. Why is that? Alright, if you get this error, that means the path specified is not right. The folder does not exist. I have no clue why that happened. Okay, and this created the text. Did I spell it right? T-E-X-T-U-R, yes. Okay, alright. Did you see what I did there? You gotta call it right. Textures. Alright, that's the mistake. Right now it'll work right. And we can delete this. Don't need that. Alright, before we move on, we still need to create the settings file that's needed to save all the information about the terrain. For example, the length and the width. So, because you're going to be saving the settings file to an asset bundle later to load it inside whatever game you're working on. So this is going to be useful because you won't be knowing what width of each of the texture planes is going to be. So this is going to be helpful. So you're going to be saving that to an asset bundle, and you're going to be loading it and get all the values that's required. So first we need to save it to a text file. So I'm going to create a stream writer. Here you're going to be important adding the using statement system.io up there, and then specify the path. I'm going to be saving this inside the assets folder, inside Minimap folder, and a file called settings.txt. And here, first value, we're going to be writing the name of the segment. I'm going to be using string.format, name equal. And I'm going to be adding that in between a quotation mark, and it's going to be the segment name. That, and the second value is going to be the length. It's going to be the x. I think it's the x increment. Yep. And let's copy this and paste it a bunch of times, actually 6. And it's going to be width, it's going to be z increment, and it's going to be the x-min and x-max and z-min, z-max. And same thing here. X-min is going to be 0. It's always going to be 0 because the map's going to be placed 0, 0. And it's going to be x-terrain max, the width of the terrain. And z-min is going to be 0. And that's going to be z-terrain max. Alright, and now we're ready to go. Make sure there's no errors. And I'm going to make my snapshots bigger so my snapshotting takes place faster. You can make it as bigger as you want, as smaller as you want. The drawback is the bigger you get, loading time is going to be higher, since you're going to be loading from an asset bundle. So the loading time is going to be slower. So make it as small as possible. So if you make it small as possible, you can actually also load it from a resources folder. So I'm going to be playing this. I'm going to be pausing this video until I take all the snapshots, and I'm going to stop. And as you can see, it didn't import any textures or anything. The reason, you have to change windows. In this case, Unity looks for any changes, and then it's going to load all the textures. The smaller the snapshot viewing area is, the more snapshots going to generate. So to make sure the settings file is generated, and open it up and see if everything's right, and you get a reload. As you can see, length 200, 200, 512. This looks right, and then we need to make a little changes to the textures itself. So as you can see, the max size 1024, and if you make the textures higher, let's say if you made the texture really smaller, or if you made the as you can see, the super size higher than a certain number, the resolution is going to be higher. So make sure you select all the textures, and then make sure you select texture, and then actually, no, wait, let's go advanced. Oops. Advanced, and then none. You don't need that. You don't need read write, and we definitely don't need bitmaps, because it's just going to be a plain texture. And then what we need, make sure it's clamped. Otherwise, you're going to see little errors at the edge of the plane. So make sure it's clamped, and make sure it's 1024. You're going to have it as small as possible. Actually, not small as possible, but make it smaller. If you make it too small, the texture won't even be visible. It will be blurry. If you make it too higher, the loading time is going to be higher. So do that. Make sure you select all of them. You don't have to do individually, and you click apply. It's going to apply to all the textures. And it's going to take some while, and we'll wait. And I'll cut this video right now, and we'll be creating more classes in the next videos.